Hey everybody, before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that if there's any pauses or anything like that or random noises in the back of this recording, it's because this is a live episode in front of people, and we did it actually at my school, so there might be a bell that goes off, and when that happens, we just kind of stop for a second, and then we keep going. But I just wanted to let you know that, and the audio is a little bit more echoey because we were using mics so people could hear us. But I just want you to please be blessed by this episode. It was really fun to record at Lowndes, and I hope I get the opportunity to do it again. But without further ado, enjoy the episode.
Excited to be here to do
My
this.
name is Laura Foster.
Guitar player extraordinaire slash resident fun guy at Northside Baptist.
Tree O'Quinn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
Neil Baker.
Eddie Baines Blanton. I'm a junior at Lowndes High School.
Peterson. I'm a student at Lowndes High School.
This is my first time doing a podcast, so I'm going to let him take the lead, and I'm just going to answer what he asked me. So,
All right, Rachel. So again, I'm so glad to be here today. This is a privilege to be having my podcast here at Lowndes. But what we're going to do, and what I've always done, is I've interviewed people for their stories. And today's not going to be any different. We're going to hear your story, Rachel. So if you want to jump right into that, and then let's hear what you got to say.
I didn't really grow up in church. I was a tennis player, so I was busy doing that a lot in tournaments and things like that. And I didn't give my life to the Lord until the summer after my freshman year. So I would think, what I would say is I was the definition of pretty much the unsaved Christian. Like I knew Jesus died on the cross for my sins. I knew I said my prayers before I went to sleep or before I would eat my food and things like that. But I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And the person that God used to do that was Drew Fairclough. I know a lot of you know him. There's a lot of other mentors in my life, but he was the main one that he asked me questions, and we were on the phone. I remember this. We're on the phone, and he's sitting there asking me questions. And I didn't grow up in Sunday school, didn't really grow up in church, so I didn't really know a whole lot of the answers. And he asked me, he said, "Well, are you saved?" And my answer was, "Well, yeah, I think so." And if you know Drew, you know he doesn't sugarcoat stuff a lot. And he told me, he goes, "Well, if you don't think so, then if you think so, then you're not." And he was exactly right. And so that whole night, I just remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, if I were to die right now, I would not go to heaven. And that just scared me. I knew that I had to get my life right with the Lord. So the next morning, I woke up. I went into the kitchen and I asked my stepmom. I said, "What does it mean to be saved?" And she kind of stopped what she was doing. She turned around and she walked me through it. She prayed with me, and I gave my life to the Lord. And from there on, I just remember just going and just really wanting to learn all that I could about the Lord and the God I was serving and what that meant for me, the next steps in being a Christian.
That's awesome to hear. And so now that you're a part of Lowndes and everything like that, what does FCA mean to you?
FCA means everything. I mean, it's grown so much, and the Lord has just used FCA to reach so many people, and just from where we started in the pack and what the Lord has done to get us in here. We started in the Aux Gym, and now we're in the pack. But what the Lord has just done and moved through people to get us in here, it's just been amazing to see. And I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to be a part of that. And I've learned so much from Miss Fletcher and our leadership team, and just so many role models, Mr. Dave. There's so many people here that pour into FCA. I mean, you can really see the passion they have for serving the Lord and wanting that peace and that comfort and of salvation for other people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, and like the growth that I've seen in like for me, this is where I was invited to. I was invited to FCA, and then it just blossomed from there. And I never thought I've always thought I was like, I want to speak, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know what I'm going to come up with, what the lesson's going to be, whatever, because I feel like I would just fumble it so bad.
Well, you found your thing.
Yeah, and then God was like, "Hey, here's a podcast that you can do," and then I'm up here now, and I'm so thankful again for the opportunity, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
But when it comes to like the future of FCA, because we're graduating in less than 15 days.
Yes.
What does that look like?
I think the future is very bright for FCA. We have an amazing leadership team that's really stepped up this year. I know me and Emma and Millie, a few other of us on the leadership team that have been really trying to be involved. We've kind of taken a little bit of a step back this semester just to give other people the opportunity to come up here and do announcements or do introductions or lead worship or speak. And they've really stepped up. I mean, they have really done what they felt like the Lord was calling them to do. And I think, the FCA is in great hands with Ms. Fletcher and Mr. Payne and everybody here that does. They have a passion for it.
Yeah. And like when it comes to, passing along those roles and that torch and things like that, what are some ways we could do that just in, like students can do that in Lowndes, right? Because we got to spread Christ, even though, and help kids know that, hey, you got to spread the word, even though we're not here. We got to pass that torch on and keep it going. So what's some ways we could do that?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of people, after I got saved and I was super excited, I was telling everybody, hey, I gave my life to the Lord, this is what I did, and this is what I'm doing now. And a lot of people came up to me, they were like, oh, I thought you knew. And I feel like a lot of times we go through our day just assuming that everybody knows the Lord, assuming that the person you pass in the hallway, they had a cross necklace on, I'm sure they go to church, I'm sure they're saved. I'm guilty of it too. Everybody is. We miss so many opportunities, and there's so many opportunities in a school with 3,200. And I feel like a lot of people don't think like just them walking through the hallways means something, but it does. If you call yourself a Christian, people know that you walk with the Lord. We're supposed to hold ourselves to a higher standard, And I feel like when people see you, people might think, oh, I'm just walking to lunch, no big deal. But if somebody sees you really with your head up, seeking out opportunities, instead of just head down on your phone, like there's different things that you can do to really show the love of Christ. And I feel like that's something that we just need to continue to do the next years, like inviting people to FCA. That's the biggest thing we can do is just keep actively trying. Don't just be passive, because you just being there somewhere does mean something. Just your presence in a room means something. Yeah.
And, one of the things that I love to say, and, hear it a lot, is, even though the conversation may be awkward, that one little bit of awkwardness you never know, it can save somebody, eternally. Right. And, like, one of the things that I love to do is, and they're out there, you'll be able to get one, is these cards that Miss Lisa handed, she gave me, and, you pass them out, they have a, it says you are seen, known, loved. They have a verse on the back, but they can start a conversation, which is what I hope you guys can do with them. And like you never know, and that might just be giving somebody that card might just be like the difference between somebody having a bad day or a good day, and you don't even know it. And that's what we need to do as Christians and be a light in our school, right? And everywhere we go. Yeah. And I'm really encouraged by, especially at least in my experience with the Northside youth, right? Like seeing two examples. Mike Avra and Avery Bellinger, they've really, they blow me away. Micah the other day, he gave me just this pack of this different stuff. It was like, if you ever heard of, I can't think of his name, but he works with Living Waters.
Okay.
I think it's Comfort. I can't think of his
I know what you mean.
First name. But, it was like all these gag gifts or whatever, right? And you look at it and you're like, how is it going to spread the gospel with it? When you look closer at it, there was it was like $1 bill or something like that. That was my favorite one. And it had the gospel on the back. And then I ended up sharing it with a teacher. I don't know, and that's another thing too. You can share it with your teachers. You can share it with students, whoever, because you never know who needs it. And, it's just the small things that you do. You don't know what the impact they're going to have. So,
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Is there anything else that you...
I want you to ask me the question.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of Charlie's podcast
Oh, boy.
episodes. When I'm riding down the road, I turn on the Young Minds podcast. I want you to ask me the question of why you think people run away from when they hear the name Jesus.
Okay.
I like that question.
All right. Well, why do you think people run away when they hear the name Jesus? Why do you think?
I think it's fear, and I think it's a comfort zone thing. Being a Christian is not always the most comfortable. In order to be a Christian, you have to step out of your comfort zone. To share the gospel, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And I feel like so many people are just so comfortable where they're at, and they're scared of stepping out of their comfort zone, because as a Christian, you cannot be comfortable in sin. You can't serve the Lord and still be comfortable in sin. And I think a lot of people want to be comfortable in their sin. They know they're not supposed to, but they want to. But that's something that we have to do, that we have to change. And that's just simple expectation of God. I don't like to use the word expectation because it's kind of a negative connotation, but still, I mean, it is. That's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
So,
And then going to those questions that I ask, is, when you look at the youth today, do you see hope, or are you worried about the future?
I'm going to give the answer a lot of people on your podcast do, and I see a mix.
Yeah.
I definitely see a side that really is on fire for the Lord, really is just taking off with it and just doing whatever they can to serve. And then I also see a side that needs to be reached. And I feel like that the side that is really on fire for Jesus and has a passion for serving the Lord, that will happen. So I do see hope.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm a little worried, but
Yeah.
I know the Lord will use that one group of people to reach the other.
It makes me, when we think about these times that we're living in, it makes me think about the Jeremy Camp song These Days, right? Because we have to, because sometimes we're thinking like, why in the world, God, have you got me placed in this moment, at this very
Right.
time? And you got to remember, like, He's got you here for a purpose.
He does.
Right? And, because sometimes you're like, you look around what's going on either here or other places, and you're like, because we all know the phrase like, man, I was born in the wrong time. I was born in the wrong
Right.
era, right? Actually, God's got you here for a reason for this particular moment.
Right.
But one of the questions I did want to ask was, if somebody walked up to you and said, Rachel, I'm struggling to navigate this world in a biblical way, what advice would you give
Forgot
them?
about that one. You do,
Yeah,
you do,
I do
you
ask
do
that
do
one.
that I would say, everybody has a different story with the Lord. Everybody has a different walk. We are all dead to sin. And the only way to heaven is through Jesus.
Morning, teachers. If you order donuts, they are here in the main conference room. Please come by and pick up yours. Teachers, if you did not get a chance to order, we have some extra ones. Please come purchase them. Thank you.
Anybody want donuts?
Hey.
I know, right? But I would just say, just stay in the Word. Look and see, what does God tell you about spreading the gospel? How did Jesus, whenever He was here, how did He actively seek and serve and share the gospel with others? And oftentimes it wasn't in big, miraculous. A lot of times it was, but sometimes it wasn't. And there's things that we can do just as ourselves. This is something they tell us in youth group all the time. You need to practice sharing your testimony and giving your testimony. And that, while it might be awkward, while it might be stepping out of your comfort zone, it is so true. It's something that you need to do. I would just say be bold. We're all dead to sin. Just remember that, the only way to heaven is through Jesus, and that's what you should want that for others. You should never want somebody that you passed by to not live in eternity with Jesus.
Right. Because I know that, and this is another common example that I hear all the time, is, say if you get to the gates of heaven and then, your friend's behind you.
Right.
And they say, well, you didn't tell me. That would crush me.
Exactly.
And you got to think, there might be somebody, in this room or in Lowndes that, you need to spread the gospel to, and God's telling you to do it. But you've got to make that push.
And, you need to surround yourself, too, with people. Because this world, definitely, Jesus sat with sinners. He did. You need to go out and you need to be around those people that you can witness to, but you also need to have that close circle of people that are going to encourage you and help you through that, because it can be tough, and whenever you try to share the gospel and somebody might not receive it well, you're going to need those people to turn back to, and obviously turn back to the Lord and pray for those people, but you're going to need people in your life to encourage you and lift you up through that and keep reminding you why you're doing this.
100%. Well, Rachel, is there anything else that you want to tell me or anything?
I have questions for you, Charlie.
Oh boy! All right, you're pulling a Pastor Robbie on me.
Yes, I am. Okay, so first off, I want everybody to know where they can find your podcast at.
Sure. So it's Apple Podcast and Spotify. Apple Podcast is the app that's usually on your phone unless you deleted it for storage or something. Trust me, I've done it. But you can find it on those two places. Yeah.
Okay. And then, how many episodes are you currently at?
Recorded?
Recorded.
Okay, so as of yesterday, I've recorded 88 episodes.
So this is 89?
No, this is 80. I'm that
Oh.
far. I'm that far. I'm recording the
that far
80th,
ahead.
and then the 89th or the 88th was recorded yesterday.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, and then are you still looking for more people to interview? Are you?
Always.
I know you do one every week.
Oh,
so-
I'm always looking for more people to
Exactly.
interview.
All right, so how can people do that? How can people?
Well, my Instagram's kind of public, so you can reach out to me and message me if you want to, and we could think of a way to meet up and everything. You can come up to me after if you're interested in the crowd. You can come up to me and we can work something out. And also, if you want a T-shirt, hey, I'm more than happy to sell you one. Therefore, every $5 of the sales goes to Northside Missions because we're going on the Savannah mission trip.
Right.
So yeah, but that's how you can reach out to me.
Alrighty. So what is the biggest way that you've seen the Lord work through your podcast?
Just in the opportunities that He's allowed me to do. The first one was the biggest one was the, being able to lead a Wednesday night service at Northside. That was huge, and of course this right now, which sprung off of that. But it's been obviously crazy to see the Lord work in terms of where He's taken it. Like He's taken it to many, many countries, and what's cool about that is I don't know who's listening in those countries specifically. Right. So, and I won't know the full impact until I get to heaven. Like, it's like, your podcast did a great thing. It's like, well, that's awesome because I didn't know it, but I'm glad it happened.
What was one of the countries you said? I was listening to an episode. You said Papua New Guinea.
Guinea. Yeah, that was one of them, and I could not pronounce it. I was struggling so hard.
I had to look it up too because I'm sitting there. Charlie's having a hard. I was like, I wonder what this is. So I went and looked it up too.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite podcast episode that you've recorded so far? Or like top 3?
Oh boy.
Top 3. I know Pastor Robbie's in
Yeah, Pastor Robbie, the 1 year was a big one.
That was a big one.
And then, but I do think, Pastor Robbie's was a big one just because of if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have had the basis for the rest of them. Because he said, because the 1 year was like like a really big thing that we were planning. He said, well, why don't we have, after we got done with his, he said, why don't we have one with all 4 of the pastors? Well, that just changed to 2. And but I was like, why not interview them individually and then get their stories first, and then we'll have them all you back as a group. Yeah. And then I just kept going, and then going. And the more people were interested, and then my mom's like a recruiter over here trying to recruit people to, be on the podcast for me. So
she did a pretty good episode.
Oh, she did. Remember, right? She did. Yeah, she did.
Okay, and also, so the Young Minds podcast, yes, and you've done such a great job with it, and you can see all the shirts that run through Lowndes High School, all the shirts that run through Northside, from all ages, people in the youth, people in the senior suite, and all in between. But the Young Minds podcast is not the only thing Charlie does.
Nope. I have a nonprofit, and it's called Operation Patriotism, and it's a little bit harder to get together stuff like for that than it is for this, because you're just scheduling one person usually. But what we do is go out and maybe get rid of like a local fire department or police department. The most recent was a fire department, and we served them lunch, and we did it here recently. We did it in the pouring rain. It poured down so hard, but we made it, and they gave us a tour and everything, which, that's so cool because I often bring the life group in to help me, and that's even more rewarding because, when I don't have to do it myself. I'm not lazy. It's just like I need help, but, and it's so cool to see them grow and serve, right, and give them the opportunity. But that was really cool, and also just to get their interactions, to see that they're, to show they're still appreciated. Like, I get, it's a rough time that we're living in. We still see you, and that we see what you're doing, and that's the main thing that we want to do. Because our slogan on the back of the shirts is they serve, now it's our turn. They served us, and now it's our turn to serve you.
So you got 2 shirt options.
Yeah, 2 shirt options, and we're gonna probably revamp the operation ones with this t-shirt place that we're doing now, which is Ink and Cotton down not too far from here. Because I won't lie, these are really nice, and we want to get them revamped. So.
And the life group that served, I remember they didn't just bring little finger foods or something. No, they brought baked beans, pulled pork. Yeah, they had the whole spread.
We had the whole the whole spread. I was like, we brought the main meal, and then they brought a lot of these desserts and stuff, and we had too much. But you know what? I'd rather have too much than too little. It was awesome.
And what a way to share the gospel with that through that ministry as well.
And also, we had those cards as well. We passed them out and things like that. And it was another main goal now. Because this was created before I got saved, but we were like, it's not the trajectory's not going to change, but we're going to be the hands and feet of Jesus and show people what God's all about.
It's so cool to me how you used both of those two. The nonprofit Operation Patriotism and your Young Minds podcast ministry to just merge those two together and work those two together. Yeah. So I really love that. Yeah.
Because I kind of had it. It was I kind of took it as a challenge in a way, because it was a couple years ago now. Somebody, it was at a small group or whatever. They said, Operation Patriotism, Jesus. I don't know how you they didn't see how you could fit it at the time. Right. And then I was like, well, I'll show you how we can fit it in there. And then that's kind of where that came from, was putting all that together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions I had. Did you have anything else?
Nope, I don't.
All right.
But just if you're wearing a Young Minds t-shirt, after we get done, come up here. Want to get a group picture, and make sure you grab those cards out there when you go out.
And we have Emma coming up to do announcements. We just want to thank Northside Baptist Church for donating breakfast. And just thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. This is FCA's first live podcast episode. Hopefully there'll be more.
I hope so, and I'll be more than happy to come back.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone and faith is action. So let's get out there.